those last products. So the last year of Topps Chrome Baseball, like, have we already had that? It's probably going to happen at least, you know what I mean, a few more years. But when it comes to like that last year, like, are people going to be holding those boxes sealed? You know what I mean? Because it's always like first year products are really popular, and sometimes last year products are too.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wax Talk with Raw Mints. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Bruce.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking Fanatics. The recent Fanatics deal, what we think it means for the hobby, the goods, the bads, kind of the outlook that we kind of have on it from the information that we have so far, just kind of our perspective and how we feel about it. But before we get into that, if you could please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We appreciate your listenership. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Raw Mints. We post our daily and weekly content there. That's where you can find a lot more of our content that we post with Raw Mints. So without further ado, let's get into it, man. All right, man. So today we're talking Fanatics. As everybody knows, that's in the hobby. But if you don't know, Fanatics pretty much scooped up the market when it comes to licensing deals in the major sports. Topps, they pretty much took over for Topps. Topps ended their agreement with the MLB and the MLB Players Association after 70 years, which is insane. I know that hurts a little bit, or maybe a lot of bit. They picked up the NBA license shortly after and the NFL license. So I believe in 4 to 5 years from now, those licenses will expire and they will be owned directly with the players associations of each league and the leagues themselves, which I believe the big reason was Fanatics is owned by those leagues, so it's pretty much they're taking a bigger piece of the pie. So without trying to be too negative about it and trying to find some positives and silver linings, we're going to try to just kind of talk it out and just see what we think it means from what we know and kind of what it means for other aspects of the hobby. So right off the bat, man, what do you think is like, what was your initial reaction to at least the MLB licensing getting taken over by Fanatics?
For me personally, I feel like the biggest thing that is questionable at all is that certain people ask you, or, you know, friends that you know that have collected for a long time, they're thinking that their cards are going to lose value, or they're going to, things are going to change that way. I mean, this is a big change that we're trying to see the positive with it overall. But a point that I just want to make is that people that have especially collected for a long time, they need to continue to understand that, you know, these certain things like vintage, if you've collected vintage, it's going to continue to hold its value. There's no reason that just because of this change that vintage, or even like any products, like, I mean, even LeBron rookies, or football Hall of Fame rookies, stuff like that, like it's not going to lose value in any way. It's probably going to continue to grow more popularity, because Fanatics is like, you know, we've had ultra modern, we've worked our way up to ultra modern. This is like ultimate modern, where people are so fixated on, you know, what the most hottest product is, what the most hottest player, and especially you have like the collegiate aspect coming to it too, man. It's like, it's a big deal for sports, and just like sports is a huge impact on the world and how we feel about sports and all that kind of thing. It's like, it's coming full circle with sports cards. So the question to me is just like, people that have been collectors for a long time, they know what has been, you know, good, or what you like to collect in general. So it's like, none of that stuff really fades away at all as far as popularity goes. And I just hope that more people that get into it, especially now that Fanatics is a thing, like there are going to be more people drawn into sports cards that haven't even been in it before, as growing as it has been. And now you have more people that come into it, and the real collectors will look back on all the way, you know, to vintage, to now, especially with players that people enjoy.
Right. Yeah, and you're right. That's a good point to make about the new people that will be involved in the hobby that we love because of Fanatics. I believe that Fanatics owns pretty much the rights to any sort of like memorabilia as far as like jerseys and whatnot go. Like they're like one of the official partners of all of these leagues. So, if you're a collector of jerseys or if you're just a fan of sports or a fan of teams, you know, I'm sure that once this deal comes to fruition and they take over the licenses and start producing product, I'm sure they're going to start pumping out um, the cards and sealed packs and whatever they do, whatever ideas they have for the card market. They're going to have that front and center. Because they have the ability to lever what they advertise, what they promote at any given moment. So, once that deal comes through, there's going to be a lot of buildup and a lot of hype, for maybe their first official release. So it is going to be front of mind for a lot of people that maybe weren't even thinking about it before, which is good for the hobby. That's more people to enjoy the hobby. That's more people to buy to sell from. I think it's just going to grow the demand more. In my opinion, I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Um,
and we don't know the collaborations that are going to happen. Like for Panini, like Panini is somebody you could definitely see collaborating with Fanatics. Like Prism, like I don't see Prism just disappearing. You know what I mean? Prism is like a really hot thing, so like I feel like that's going to continue on, whether it's not just called Panini Prism, it's just like Fanatics Panini Prism or something. It could be something realistically like that.
it's
Who
just
knows?
Prism with
But
an S instead of a Z.
yeah, it could be something just like it could be like a drastic change or like a very subtle change. Like you don't know yet, but it's like this has just been a growing market. And obviously, we talk about before in previous episodes with ultra modern how there's so many products, so it's bound that people like kind of get tired of that. They want to move into something else. I feel like Fanatic steps in. One thing, like wishful thinking for me, if thinking on a positive note with Fanatics, is that if they have full control of whatever kind of product they want, in a way that we start seeing, like for basketball for instance, you have like upper deck, like game used jersey type stuff, like back like the old school stuff. um all-star jerseys, like you think back to like the mid 90s upper deck stuff, like if they have control of things like that, or SP authentic, like certain things like that, I mean it could be a really desirable market. But they could just, I'm thinking on like an old school way, like it could just be Fanatics just have like Fanatics autographics, and that's just their thing. You know what I mean? They could have their own random thing that way.
Right. And I mean, Panini has already partnered with Fanatics before,
Yeah.
which kind of leads you to believe, like, did Panini know this prior? Like they were like thinking about acquiring them, like acquiring the licenses. Because I mean, they've worked together, with like the waves, like the silver wave type of stuff. That's a Fanatics exclusive. Like just like we have the Target exclusives and Walmart exclusives, they've had
Yeah.
Fanatics exclusives. So they've partnered together before. So
Yeah, and that's
that
always been
that could be a
normal.
good sign, I think.
Yeah, it's always been normal, but like the biggest hit for me when it comes to this whole like thinking and things is always with baseball. Like soccer, I feel like there's room to grow and I'm going to be happy with that possibly, but like with baseball, it's like if you get rid of Bowman and Topps flagship and stuff, it's like it's it's like the tradition, bro. It's like, you know what I mean? Like with baseball, like collecting baseball, like that's why like I feel like you're gonna hold on to even the most basic of Topps cards that you have, like 1980 Topps Ricky Henderson rookie, or like, you know what I mean? Just things like that that just aren't even, they're gonna become more and more like rare in a way. Even though you had that junk wax era, that abundance of cards, it's like dismissing that completely potentially, I mean, could bring more rarity to that. But
Right.
I don't know. It's just all in the weight of seeing what happens. It's just for us though, we want to encourage collectors to just continue to do what they're doing, and um, if anything, a lot of the super base stuff, which I feel like that's been the biggest hit as far as with grading companies and other products, is there's just an abundance of modern cards that people were expecting to sell for like a really high dollar, and that's just not consistent. You know what I mean? Especially with young players. So if anything, there's just like a drastic transition that's been thrown into the hobby to I don't know. For the better, I see it as understanding your knowledge of knowing from, vintage all the way to what is now modern, because then it could be something new and exciting.
Right. Yeah. And it's all just a shift. I mean, so do you think that I personally think this, but do you think that the MLB is the biggest loser in this as far as the hobby goes? Now that
The
Tops, the 70 years is a long time, man. Like, what businesses do you know, or like products or things that are just staples of our American society? Like Tops is the original, bro. Like it's the OG. Like anytime people think of trading cards, I'm sure their first thought is Tops,
Yeah,
just
tops
because it's been
overall,
around for so
Bowman,
long.
Bowman, but overall tops. Yeah.
Like, I personally think that that is kind of a shame to me. Like, that kind of sucks. And from what it seems like, from what I've read, I haven't dug too much into it because everybody's kind of saying the same thing and speculating. There's not really a lot of concrete info, but a few of the articles that I've read said that Topps was completely blindsided by this deal, which, take that what you will. They might just be a PR, quote, but if they really were blindsided by it, like that kind of just, to me, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth with the MLB, because it's not Top's fault. I mean, I'm sure the reason. I mean, we all know the reason why is just money.
Well,
Fanatics
yeah,
probably threw the
dude,
threw the bank
you
backed up the Brinks truck to them.
dude, you literally have a company that's willing to just say, "Hey, like we're going to change the game completely because we see how much money is in sports cards." You know what I mean? And it makes sense cuz anybody can make money on sports cards, but like it's conflicting for us when we talk about the hobby as far as collectability and collecting, you know what I mean? It's great to focus on it being like a, you know, a financial alternative. But overall, it's just like when money consumes everything, it just takes away from the hobby. So, our important goal is to make sure that people understand that just because this big move is happening, it's going to be beneficial if you work in ways of, you know what I mean, understanding profits, I guess, of the newer stuff that comes out. But just, I mean, hold on to what you have and what you know. That's really important. You know, the stuff that you like, because it's not going to just completely lose value just because there's something super modern coming out. Just like I said, the ultimate modern like experience with sports cards, like there's still the originality. You know what I mean? Originality is always key in understanding the origin story.
Right. And that's a good point that you just made, and I completely agree with that. It is, again, I mean, we've kind of been saying this since we started this podcast, is collect what you love, you know, focus on that, focus on collecting first. And I think that you really can't go wrong. And I think that there will be a divide. I think that the current hobby, as far as like you said, the ultimate modern, there's a lot of hype. It's kind of like a hype beast marketplace nowadays. Everybody's chasing the latest product, even if there's 50 products that release for the same sport every year. Like everybody's just always building up that latest product and just kind of on to the next, like, which, I mean, it's good to see that people are excited about cards anyways. Like, you have to realize that if people are excited about cards, that's always a positive. But the only thing that kind of worries me about the transition to Fanatics, is all the breakers, all of the flippers, all of the people are just going to just transition over to the Fanatics thing. And the only thing that I kind of worry about is people at the core of the hobby, or people that are collecting or new to it before the Fanatics still, that were kind of learning their way. They're kind of at a fork in the road, like, okay, well, do I stick with what I've been collecting and what I've been focusing on, or do I shift over to the new shiny object, which it's different than just a new product that comes out, because at least it's still with Tops, it's still with Panini, but a whole new type of company and a whole new deal. We don't know what's going to happen, but that to me is just kind of like, that's the one thing that worries me, is that people are just going to be all about Fanatics, you know?
Yeah, it's we bring up like your card shops and stuff like that, like the local card shops. prices have increased for a lot of them. Some shops, you always think of like those shops that were like super high on prices, and then those shops that were like reasonable in prices. But it's gotten to the point, sometimes where you see hobby boxes or whatever, and you see them for like a crazy price. You look on eBay, yeah, you might be able to get it cheaper, but it's just like the time factor of you're there at a shop and you would like to pick up a box. But it's like the deals and how limited, like on a lot of the shop owners like that we've talked to, I feel like are kind of just, they've been doing it for so long and they've seen like the extended amount of pay, or what I mean, just to like the availability of certain product, for whatever sport it may be, like the wait time or the price increase. Like they're literally like at the point where they might be trying to make like $20 to $30 on a box or something like that just to pay. But like I feel like a lot of old heads, as far as shop owners and stuff, they're just kind of at the point where they may grow with this whole new Fanatics thing, or I don't know, maybe they just continue to have what they have and encourage people to collect older stuff, still have older wax, which could also continue to increase in value or hold value. um I don't know, it's kind of just the unknown of the whole thing.
Right. And that's kind of another point that I wanted us to talk about is how do we feel about the so here's the deal. Here's the scenario. I was talking to Peter from Showtime Sports Cards in Tempe. Shout out to them.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
who I
talking
think
to him
about
about
too.
it. Right. I was talking to him about it when it first was announced, and I kind of asked his thoughts and kind of asked him how he felt about it. And the first thing he said was, "I'm going to be retired by then," which is kind of funny and sad at the same time because it's like he's just bowing out. He's like, I don't even want to deal with it. But
But dude,
um,
he's also
we
been doing it for so long. Like
right,
I'm 33, and I remember going there when I was like, probably 9 or 10. So he's been there like around for a minute.
right, and we did talk about it in detail really afterwards, and I was just talking to him, and he made a couple good points that I wanted to share with you, and obviously all of the listeners out there. Is one of the points he said is everything up until the Fanatics deal being announced, all of the products that were, especially the ultra modern products that were kind of already starting to get overproduced, like everything up until that point is going to be more valuable than everything that comes out after the deal was announced. Because he's like, think about it. If he's like, especially if Topps was blindsided, think about it this way. Like, if your deal expires in 4 years or 5 years from now, and you just were completely cut out of your breadwinner, especially I mean all of the big three, MLB, NBA, and NFL, is like if you're them, are you just gonna start pumping out product like crazy, like you never have before, just to kind of try to make as much money as you possibly can before your license expires? Which I think is a really good point that he made. Like, what's to stop Topps and Panini from just being like, well, screw it. Like, the deal's going to end in 4 years. We're going to put out, Topps Chrome this, like all kinds of, different updates and different series and all kinds of variations and whatnot. Like, we've already been seeing it anyways within the hobby with products of kind of the overproduction. But he's just like, just be weary. Like, I wouldn't place too much of a bet on the newer stuff that's going to happen now. That's going to come out now. It's already in production right now, because they're going the print runs on those are going to be so high. Because if if you're Tops, like what else are you going to do? Like if your license is done and let's just say there's no agreement or any sort of like leeway with the MLB licensing because they own it now, like what are they going to do? Just focus on soccer? The soccer market's big, but it's not as big as baseball. It's not as big
Yeah.
as their cash cow. Like, so he said just be wary of all of the new products that are going to come out within the next 4 to 5 years. He also made a good point that that deal could be sooner than we think. Like, if Fanatics pretty much bought all three of the major licenses in the hobby, what's to stop them from dishing out more money, saying how much do you want for it now? Like how much do you want for us to buy you out of your contract? Like now, like today,
Yeah, I
you
think
know?
everything is up in the air right now. The only example that I have in the hobby for collecting as long as I have, the only comparison that you have seen to this fanatic situation is when Topps lost their license with NFL and NBA. So, I mean, that's like one turning point that I remember in the hobby that kind of where you didn't have that, and it turned into Prism. And like realistically, dude, like when Prism came out, you could have bought all that stuff for so cheap. Like if you would have just held it, just for whatever purposes, like the first year of Prism and stuff, like nobody cared about that, because it was just like, oh, Tops is done, whatever. And it's just like it kind of fell off. I felt like for a while, and then it came back into it, later on, obviously, and became popular. But that's kind of like the example that I have, like that's closest to this Fanatics thing. So if anything, it's almost like I remember when Topps lost its license to NFL and NBA. Now it's just they're losing their license to MLB, and it's more unfortunate to me because you think about how long Topps has been around, especially for baseball. So it's like it's really huge for collectors, and I feel like it's discouraging in a way, but at the same time, it doesn't take away from what has come out from Topps. It makes you appreciate Topps cards more, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. I think that makes perfect sense, man. And if any collectors are out there are just kind of upset about the Fanatics deal, which there's some things about it that we are upset about. Obviously, losing Topps baseball MLB cards is going to be terrible. Like, and we all know how less desirable unlicensed products are. Like
Well,
I
yeah,
love
that's a
optic baseball,
huge
but
dude, that's a
like
huge plus though. That's exactly what you're saying is a huge plus potentially to seeing Optic Hollow and Prism Silver baseball MLB with the actual logos on them. I mean, that could be an awesome thing to see because like I said, like I don't think that Prism is going to disappear. Probably Optic. Like I feel like Panini is still going to be strong in this. It's just the most questionable thing is what is Topps going to do? Like if we can't see Topps Chrome Baseball or Bowman Chrome Baseball, like is there going to be a way that Bowman can just go back to its own separate thing and just produce Bowman products? Like
right.
that's wishful thinking, but again, Bowman is basically owned by Topps, so it's
What
questionable.
what do you think the odds are that within the next few months or the next year or so, um, what do you think the odds are that Fanatics just outright just buys Topps and Panini?
I don't know. I feel
That's because
like the
that's a
biggest thing,
possibility.
a huge chase thing I feel like for collectors or something like I don't know that I've thought about is those last products. So the last year of Topps Chrome Baseball, like have we already had that? It's probably going to happen at least, you know what I mean, a few more years. But when it comes to like that last year, like are people going to be holding those boxes sealed? You know what I mean? Because it's always like first year products are really popular, and sometimes last year products are too. And with the whole, licensing changing of different things that have happened throughout the hobby for a while, because there's been so many products, dude. And then they eventually just evolved into Topps or Panini. And most of them were Panini. Outside of hockey, which still has some cool stuff. Like I sent you something earlier about Fleer Metal hockey that just came out. I mean, that's a fun rip, dude. And you used to be able to do that with baseball, football, and basketball.
Right, right. So to backtrack to when Topps initially lost the NFL and NBA license to Panini, do you happen to remember some of the positives for the hobby at the time?
I don't know. It just depends on the sport. Because when I'm thinking of like for football, last year a Topps Chrome is 2016. I want to say. I don't know. It's just one of those things that you look back. Like, I mean, I have a freaking 2005 Topps Chrome Refractor Frank Gore rookie. You know what I mean? Like, I just think of like if Topps Chrome is around, I just want to know when it began, when it ended. Just like anything else. So I'm just wondering what's going to come back. Like, do Fanatics have the option of bringing Topps Chrome basketball back, or football, I mean, that could be a plus for the hobby. I mean, it's just, dude, like, who knows what's going to happen? Like, what Tops decides to do, really, at the end of the day.
Right. And I mean, maybe not what they decide to do, but what Fanatics and the MLB allow them to do, because they pretty much have them, the ball is in Fanatics and the big three major sports court.
Yeah.
And
Well, hopefully they don't completely take away the tradition, you know what I mean? Of cards, dude. Like, really, at
right.
the end of the day.
Well,
Especially baseball cards. Like, baseball cards are really what I'm most like wondering about because of the whole Tops thing.
exactly, like what's going to happen with that?
Yeah, and honestly, at the end of the day, dude, like when football and basketball became Prism, like Panini, like I was able to live with that. I'm fine with that. But like then you throw a baseball into it, like finally, and it changes everything. And like I said, the biggest plus that I keep thinking about is being able to see Optic and Select and Prism baseball with MLB logos. Like that's cool and all, but if you take away Tops cards completely, it's just kind of weird.
right. And that is with the assumption that Fanatics is just going to pretty much, I wouldn't say merge with Panini, because they're the bigger fish, but that's with the assumption that they're going to allow Panini to continue to operate with their, likeness. Like that's the hopes. It's unfortunate that Topps is taking such a hit and potentially Panini taking such a hit. I in a perfect world, it'd be nice just to like I would be totally fine with just Fanatics if Fanatics would have just announced that they purchased Topps and Panini, then I'd be like, you know what? Like, yeah, it's still a monopoly because now there's only one company that owns it, and so they could decide whatever they want for wax prices. They could decide whatever they want for releases and pumping out as much as they want to. But if they would have announced that, I would have probably felt a little less salty about it because then it could be just like any acquisition with any company, any larger parent company that purchases the smaller businesses. Most of the time they allow that business to just to continue to operate, but now they're just under the umbrella of the bigger business. Which it happens all the time. It happens in every industry, and if people don't get fired, hopefully people don't lose their jobs and whatnot. Like that's usually the goal. That's kind of what we need to worry about too. Is there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be a lot out of work if especially Tops if they can't produce any other product. Like it's going to be real tough to stay in the market. But if they would have announced that they were just acquired by them, then I would be like, you know what, okay, I'm sure that that's just them saying we recognize how much sports cards are making and how big the industry is, and we want a piece of that. We want to own that. So as long as you're just giving us our percentage, like you can continue to operate as such. But that's not what happened. Like Fanatics wants to operate as their own card company. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
For now.
hopefully it still helps out. However the whole deal ends with everything, hopefully everything's in good standing that way and we can still continue to have great products, dude. Like realistically, because I mean, it's gonna be shitty if Fanatics just comes along and just completely wipes away everything and changes everything. Like I don't think it's gonna be that way. I think that there'll still be that collaborative effort within these companies, and you'll still see products. It's just it might be different sports. I don't know. I mean, just trying to just grow with it. I mean, that's all you can do really in the
Right.
hobby. I mean, for super ultra modern collectors and people just getting into it, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be an easy way of making money, and that's great, but like I always feel like once everything fades away, it just goes back to, the older stuff. The rare stuff, the less overproduced type stuff that's going to continue to hold value, especially graded.
Yeah, especially graded. And just one final point. I'm sure we could talk about this a lot longer, but I think maybe once things evolve and we find out more information, and maybe there's press releases, maybe there's acquisitions or different movement that happens within Panini, Tops, and Fanatics. We'll definitely speak on our thoughts on that. But for now, it's the last point I kind of wanted to make is, and we've been talking about this, off air, is support your local card shop, man, because they're going to probably be the ones that are hit the hardest in all of this. Because if the way Fanatics operates and what is assumed they're going to operate is online retail only, so pretty much cutting out the the middle, just cutting out the distributor, cutting out everybody in between you and getting your hands on some product, which
Yeah, and
a lot of people will
for
see that as a plus. A lot of people will see that as, well, I wasn't able to get it in retail for the past 2 years, and now I'm finally able to get it online, which, again, be weary of how much is produced. Um, but there's a big possibility, there's a big chance that with this happening, that it completely cuts out the local card shop.
Yeah, and exactly like we talked about with Pete, and as an example, somebody that's been doing it for a long time, it leaves, these shop owners no choice but to not only like raise the price of the value on different products, but eventually they're just trying to keep up more and more. They can't get enough of the supply. Or they're having to change licensing, that kind of thing. I mean, it's a big deal right now. And I feel like people that have gotten into it for the last couple of years, maybe it's more, they're able to adapt to it more, as more and more new collectors, because the newer collectors are going to take over. I feel like people that don't have even any knowledge of the hobby at all, or cards, are going to take over the market just because they have so much money to spend, which is cool. It's going to be exciting. But again, like when things continue to die down like they always do, like the real collectible cards, will be more notable. And people that are new, like I said, that will get more into the hobby and understand these older cards, so that creates a different market. As vintage is, realistically continuing to rise, even though you have this Fanatics move and potentially whatever that's going to mean. I mean, like, there's still vintage cards, or mid 90s insert cards graded high level that are selling for like higher prices than ever. So you see an increase. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense, man. Support your local card shop. You know, we've said it before, and it should be common knowledge, but now, like you said, more than ever, support your local card shop, man. Everybody out there, even if you're just there to buy supplies, just support your shop and try to, help them through this. Hopefully, it doesn't end up for the worst for them. Hopefully, they're maybe cut in prior to online distribution, which would be nice, and maybe they're giving, local local card shop owners a solid deal to where they can still survive. Because if you're in the hobby and you don't know the importance of local card shops, they're an integral part of the hobby, man. I mean, like you said, you've been going to Pete's Showtime Sports since you were a kid, and I mean, we could talk all day about your experience. Maybe we'll have an episode about what it's like to visit your local card shop. Maybe we should do that next, just to kind of promote more awareness of it. But it's going to be different. It's going to be unfortunate if kids aren't able to experience it, and adults and everybody that loves the hobby aren't able to experience that because they're no longer around. So do what you can to support them wherever you may be. If you have a local card shop in your town, see how you can just go on and keep it going. So let's get into our pickups and flips of the week. All right, man. So my pickup of the week actually was from eBay. Obviously, we do a lot of purchasing on eBay. My pickup of the week, I picked up a 2008. I finally did. I picked up a 2018 Panini Donruss Optic Bruno Fernandez Hollow PSA 9. That's card number 59. I've been wanting this card for quite some time now. I know you probably have one or two raw.
Yes.
I got it at a pretty decent price because they've been pretty up and down depending on his performance. But I really like Bruno Fernandez, but I got that for $100 flat. So pretty solid for an optic hollow, especially how difficult the centering and it is to grade those cards. What about you?
My pickup is not a huge deal at all, but just an example that I want to make on a card with potential rise or a player was from 2021 Chronicles draft. It's a Mac Jones Optic Hollow Silver. I picked this card up for $12. I think that now even raw they're selling like 60 to $80. I don't know why. I don't know if that's going to be anything, especially with, collegiate sports like rising in a way. It's a clean card. It's super clean. It's a little bit off centered, but I mean, for $12 and just to see the rise even before season starts, like I feel like, is he going to be the next guy for the Patriots? Who knows?
All right. Yeah. No, that's a good pickup. I'm staying away from all rookie classes right now.
If it's cheap enough,
Basketball,
though. I mean,
football.
12
bucks,
bucks
you
for
can't
an
beat that.
optic hollow rookie. Even though it's college, I mean, it's a rated rookie. It's a sick ass card, but yeah, I mean, $12 and it's already increased value. Who knows how he's actually gonna play.
Right. That's always the case when it comes to new guys. My flip of the week. This is probably one of my longest flips since I've been in the hobby. I remember I went to a card shop in Phoenix, not Showtimes, but in Phoenix, and I picked up this card for, at the time, I want to say like $6, maybe $8 tops, but it was a 2018 Panini Donruss Optic Jaren Jackson Jr. card number 188. I picked that up raw. It was a blue Velocity, and I sent that in for grading. And we had gotten that back maybe in this last January, and I sold it recently for $145. It
And that
actually,
was
I'm
a
sorry,
10.
it gemmed. So I sent
Yeah,
it in for grading, got it back, and it gemmed. So I got a PSA 10. So pretty happy
that's a
about that.
nice card. That was a nice card.
Right, but yeah, so I sold that for $145. So not bad. What about you?
Right on. My flip is going to be the only Giannis rookie I had. It's his 2013 SP Authentic. We got this back recently from one of our subs. It got a Gem Mint 10, which is awesome. Probably into this card for like the $15 range, I think, at the time. Sold it for $200. So that's definitely a flip. At some point, I would like to reinvest into probably a better Giannis rookie of some sort. Maybe even a Prism base again or a Select.
Those selects are nice. I think I like to select more than the Prism of that year,
The Select Silvers are really nice,
for
but I'm
sure.
sure very expensive.
Yeah, oh yeah. Forget about it. But yeah, no, that's good flips, man. I mean, I believe in Giannis. I think that he's a great player, but I mean, you got to take advantage. You got to strike when the iron's hot, man. Right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's a really cool card. If it would have been like the autograph version of that SP Authentic, that would have been cool. That would have been something to hold on to. But I don't know. Just I love SP Authentic, but that just wasn't the card for me, especially for his rookie, I guess.
Right, because he's in his like Greece jersey, right?
Yeah, like his warm up jersey of some sort,
Right.
probably. I don't know.
Just skinny before he got yoked.
Yeah, super yoked.
All right, man. So those are our pickups and flips of the week. All right, so I think that we covered everything we wanted to. I mean, I'm sure we could have talked about it a lot more with Fanatics, the acquisition, the deals that they took over from Topps and Panini. We're hoping for the best. We're really trying to stay positive about it, trying to find the silver linings of it all. We're hoping that it doesn't come with too much of a change. We're hoping that they come up with some sort of, like you said, a collaborative effort to continue on what they were doing, especially Topps with baseball. I'm hoping that this isn't the end of Topps baseball, because that would be rough, and Bowman baseball. That would be really crappy, man. But who knows? I mean, 5 years is a long time. It could be less time, but until then, continue to support your local card shop, don't you say?
Yeah, support your local card shops and just continue to collect how you've been collecting. Especially if you're leaning more away from, the super modern stuff that is out now. This is the time to get into the originality of sports cards. Whether it be Topps, Bowman, Topps Chrome, up to Panini products, whatever it may be, because who knows what it's going to turn out to be. So that's kind of just, I feel like we'll know like sooner than, 3 to 5 years, we'll get more of an idea of what's going to happen. But hopefully it will be more of a collaborative effort overall within the sports. And with soccer, I mean, that's the thing for us is like we could care less what's happening with soccer. Like as long as there's more cool products that come out, like that's something that's been exciting with soccer. So like whatever happens with that, like I'm into, but yeah, it's like who knows what's going to happen with the other sports, especially baseball, but definitely excited for some soccer stuff.
For sure. For sure. So we really do hope you enjoyed today's episode. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for continuing to listening and bearing with our technical difficulties. I know my audio doesn't sound that great as it has been in the past. We're working on fixing that very soon. So hopefully by the next episode, we'll be back to sounding crystal clear with all that bass in our voice, in my voice at least. But again, thank you for listening today. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Raw Mints. That's where we post all of our content. We recently did a rebranding, a redesign of our page. We really hope you like it. Let us know your feedback. Reach out to us on Instagram if you have certain thoughts on Fanatics and how you feel about it, and we'll be sure to speak about it further. But until then, this has been another episode of Wax Talk with Raw Mints. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Bruce.
Thank you for listening.